I'm originally from a major city in southern Ohio, and outside of the town, there are a number of smaller townships. One of these is known as the more country bumpkin redneck grit part of town. It's not even the same county, but it is part of the general area my city is in. In the woods there's this legend of Hell's Church, supposedly an old church that burned down where Satanists do rituals now, or a Satanist church that burned down by a ritual. There are a number of Hell's Church myths in Ohio in many different places, but this one was close to us, and a number of my guy friends decided they wanted to be ghost hunters and check out haunted places around where we lived. We were juniors in high school, and while all of us obviously thought this was just stupid bullshit, we thought it was funny to go out and scare ourselves. Plus, most people had cars or driver's license by now, so we were enjoying our new burst of freedom. I'm a scaredy cat about most stuff like this, but I was the most tomboyish girl in the group and always kind of wanted to be able to hang out with the guys. Plus, some of the girls in the group weren't going, so I didn't want to look like a loser or a pussy. So one day in November, we decided we were going to go out one night and try and find this church. We had actually been to this location once before that fall, but one of my friends had a curfew. So after exploring an old barn in the railroad tracks on a bridge nearby, we left. We hadn't found the church. We took 2 cars out there going past more populous parts of our city and back to this woodsy area. I can't honestly tell you how we got out there, but I know it's off a state highway, then an abandoned access road, past some old warehouse, and then down a dirt road. Once you get down the dirt road, there's a kind of thicker part of the road early on where we parked cars off of the shoulder. We did this because the road thins out and becomes impossible to drive down, and also someone clearly owns this land, and later down the road there is some no trespassing signs. I'm not sure a ton of kids come back here, so it did not seem odd to me that they wanted to block this place off. I barely thought twice about it at this time. We get out of our cars and start walking down the dirt road, wandering off the path from time to time to check out barns and clearings where we thought the chimney might be. At first, it was just scary because it was dark and old, or whatever, but then the barns started to get weirder, like they were filled with weird spray painting, symbols, and bullshit. But that's not what bothered us, but also other stuff like dead owls that looked like they had been opened up, and other bits that looked like they might have come from animals. I was grossed out, but we all kind of agreed that this probably came from the same teenagers trying to fake a satanic ritual, or that the animals got trapped in the falling part of the barn and died in there. My friends are now hardcore trying to find this stupid chimney, so they keep taking off through the trees into clearings. Myself and the other 2 girls who were there kind of hang back on the tree line for most of them, getting a little more nervous and a little irritated with all the coming up empty. As we keep going, we find a bike on the tree line, like a bike that maybe a 12-year-old would ride. That's a little creepy, but fine, whatever. Probably belonged to someone who owned the land. We decided we were going to go a little further, and soon enough we find another bike. This one is older, a little rusted, but still undersized. We did not talk too much about the other bike, just kind of mumbling that it's probably still nothing. 1 or 2 of the 4 guys who were there kind of trying to tump it up, saying these kids probably got murdered, or stuff like that, but no one is really having it. By this point, we have been here for about 2 hours and it's getting really late, plus I think we were all a little more creeped out than we wanted to admit. We decided to head back to the cars, and I'm feeling relieved, happy to be headed back to my house and the hell out of there. But things never work out that way, do they? By the cars we see a road that goes straight up a hill through the trees. At the start of it, there's a big metal gate that had a road closed sign on it, which we had seen before, but for some reason it had never occurred to us to try and go up to the road. We had a small debate at the gate about an even split on who wanted to venture up and who did not. I absolutely did not, but eventually we decided we'll go up there, just to see. Both of the drivers want to go, so there's not a lot we can do about it. We climb up the gate and start up the hill, where an old pavement road is cracked and crumbled under our feet, though it was, for sure, a real asphalt road at some point. In addition to the road condition and the brush being an obstacle, someone had a full bunch of trees over the path, purposely blocking the road from any cars. Some of us are starting to seriously question if we should be doing this, arguing that someone obviously wanted to keep us out of here, but we get teased for being afraid and keep going. I could not see where the road would end because it was so dark and the tree made it hard to see. Plus the road was super steep, so all you could really see was up, with the little moonlight peeking through the trees. All of a sudden, we reach the end. The trees just open up, and we have come off the incline to a flat field, and holy shit, what a sight it was. It's the flat field with tall prairie grass on either side. The path we are on splits the large clearing we are in down the center and leads through the grass. Two look like they are farmhouses and one varnish building, and while they may have been painted at one point, it looked like they had been mostly weathered and stripped by time. I see this and I am done. I want to leave. But of course, some of my friends say that we have to check out these buildings. At this point, I finally put down my foot, as do the other two girls and one of our guy friends, who decided this is enough for him. So the three guys who want to go to the buildings tell us just to wait there. While we don't want to be in this field out in the open, we decide we can't just leave them. At this point, we have turned off our flashlights because the moonlight is so strong. The three of them take off down the little path, and the four of us who remain stand together, bitching about how stupid our friends are and making small talk. None of us say it, but we are all looking to the grass every now and then, worried something is going to jump out. It's just so creepy, this abandoned little settlement. It feels like our friends are gone forever. We see them get to a building and go inside. We can see the flicker of their flashlights in the windows. And I just remember feeling so tense, it was like watching a horror movie in real life. After maybe 10 minutes, we see our guy friend coming towards us, lightly jogging, looking afraid for the first time all night. "You idiots went inside?" I said, pissed off at them. One of my friends just looks at us, and I'll never forget it. It was full of bikes, just bikes, chained to the walls. We did not believe them, kept waiting for them to say they were kidding, but they insisted, said it was like they were just storing a bunch of bikes there, most of them smaller. They looked afraid. As much as I didn't want to believe them, I did. They are not the type of guys to pull a prank for this long. By then, we all agree we need to get the hell out of there. And we start down the hill, hurrying the best we can. All of a sudden, about halfway down the field, we can see a car's headlights down the hill about where our cars are. We see them pass slowly, and we know that someone is down there looking for us. Because it's so far off the beaten path, we figure it's one of two things: the cops and we are going to be screwed for trespassing, the people who own this land or these houses or something, and they are going to A, call the cops, or B, murder us. We know that the road isn't that long, so they'll be turning around, circling back soon enough because our cars are there. They'll probably wait for us. We are all whispering about this as we pick up the pace, sprinting down the hill as fast as we can. I'm not a good runner, but I was hauling ass, getting down as fast as I could, basically hurtling over the falling trees. Once we get down the hill, we don't see any headlights, but we know they can't be far away. "Get in the damn cars," one of our friends yells, and we're fumbling with the doors like in a horror movie, just too nervous to get into the cars. We get in, and just as we start the cars up, we see the headlights speeding down the road, a giant black truck roaring behind us. The truck seemed larger than life. Raised off the ground, the whole thing was terrifying, but extra terrifying that we could not see who was driving in the dark, with the headlights blinding us. We peel out of there, total pedal to the metal. This truck is still following us, bearing down on us as our two cars race out of there. The car is also getting real close to us, threateningly close, almost like it was trying to run us off the road. We are all screaming, looking back at the truck, fighting for some distance. Once we get to the highway, we are switching lanes, trying to escape. Luckily, we were in sedans, so it is easier for us to weave in and out of cars. But this truck is still chasing us. We are in two different lanes, but don't want to get too separated from our friends. The passengers of both cars are texting back and forth, trying to make a plan. It took us about 15 minutes to lose the truck. I'm not sure if the distance was too much, or if they turned around, but once we got to a big shopping center area, we ducked off the road and into a Sonic parking lot. We all sat in our cars for a little bit, watching to make sure that we weren't going to get snuck up on before getting out of our car to get some food and talk. Everyone was pretty shaken up. It took us a while to settle down enough to head home. As much as we talked it over, we just could not figure out what had happened. Eventually, we all went home during what was a pretty silent car ride, exhaustion and lingering fear taking over. We did not talk about it again for a long time, and we never called the police, which honestly, as an adult now, I feel like we should have. I don't think about it often, only during the fall, really. But when I do think about it, I ask myself, who chased us? Why was the town abandoned? Who owned those bikes? And where are they now? When I was in grade school, my family lived in a house that sat directly across the school I attended. However, that was about half a mile of wooded area between them. I was allowed to walk to and from school because it was straightforward. My mother informed me that she and her siblings walked through the woods to school when they were younger, so it felt like a natural and safe thing for her. I loved the excitement of being able to walk to school all on my own, and I felt pretty at home in the woods, as I had been raised around them. The walk was pretty direct, with very little issues aside from a small but wide creek that I had to pass. The creek itself was no problem. It was the fact that on each side there was a steep bank that had to be scaled. It wasn't too terrible unless it had been raining. It had rained the day before, so my steps, which were normally loud, were fairly silent. This might have saved my life. It at least saved me from something terrible. When I reached the creek, I was in my own little world. I was thinking about a science project we had to do at school, and whether or not I was fully prepared for my part in it. I was doing the supernova section and wasn't feeling very ready to make a speech in front of everyone explaining it. Anyway, I reached the creek and dropped down the first bank with a slightly wet thud. I crossed over the water and began looking for something to grab a hold of to pull myself up. There were usually roots sticking out of use. Before I could climb up the other side, I heard a noise like people talking. I stopped and waited to see if I heard it again. I did. I heard a couple of boys talking, getting closer to me. I smashed myself against the bank and listened for a minute. I don't know why, but something just told me to stay away, that something was wrong. The boys came so close, all the way to the edge of the creek bank, but they did not jump down. If they had, they would have seen me in a flash. As luck would have it, there was an overhang I was able to hide under. I listened as the boys talked. Yeah, she comes through here all the time. She should be coming in just a minute. My heart sank. I was the only person that walked this trail, and they were in my direct path. This isn't to say that no one was ever in the woods, but in all the time I used this trail, I'd never seen another person. To get to the woods from my house, I had to cross the road and walk through a small flat area with trees, and from the school side, I had to walk through the school's football field. Anyone from either side could have seen me going in or out of the woods easily. I stood plastered to the wall of mud, waiting for them to catch me, but they walked around a little bit, smoked a couple of cigarettes, and started getting frustrated. "Where in the hell is she, man? You said she would be here, so where is she? Maybe she isn't coming to school today. Anyway, we gotta go, or we are going to miss the bus." The high schoolers caught their bus to high school at the elementary school. This told me two things. One, they were obviously in high school, so much older than me, and two, they had some seriously bad intentions toward me. I heard them leaving, but I did not dare move. I waited a good 30 minutes or so before I darted out of the creek bed and toward home. I will never know exactly what those two boys had planned to do to me that day, and I'm not sure I want to. So my family owns a cabin on a small lake in New Hampshire. We go there every summer. It's basically our home away from home. There are other houses on the lake, quite a few near us. Beyond that, it's a pretty rural area. Miles of woods stretch beyond the lake houses, so there's really no reason to be in the area unless you were hunting, own a lake house, or were visiting the lake for whatever reason. So one night, maybe 6 years ago, it was late, probably around midnight, my ex and I were laying in bed, chatting about whatever. All of a sudden, we hear footsteps outside the window. The window lays only about halfway up on the wall to the side of the bed, and is situated so that it opens right at the bottom of the bed where our feet are. The ground around the house is covered in a layer of pine needles that dropped from above, so it's pretty hard to walk quietly, but the footsteps sounded like whatever was making them were trying their best to not be heard. They sounded relatively close, but we rationalized to ourselves that they were probably made from some sort of animal. A couple of minutes go by and we hear them again, except this time they seemed closer. They seemed to be right outside the window, still trying to move quietly. At this point, the two of us are starting to get a little freaked out. To our mutual horror, we look down and see a hand slowly coming through the window. Obviously, we scream and wake the house up, and my parents come running out of their adjacent room. We tell them what happened, and my father rationalizes it as the event being a figment of our imaginations. To this day, I don't know if he was right. The weird thing is that both my ex and I saw the same thing. So how could it be our imaginations? To this day, I feel uneasy staying in that room, and I always make sure to shut the window before going to bed. I moved to an island on Lake Michigan for the summer. It's a tourist area, and you can make decent money in the summer, and my aunt owns a bar and grill and motel, so I figured why not. I just went through a breakup after a 6-year relationship, and I have been battling issues with depression and anxiety for over a year now, so I figured this would be a nice change of scenery. I am staying with my older cousin at a cabin her mom owns approximately 1.5 miles away from where we both work. We are both women. This island is basically nothing but woods and forest. It's very beautiful, but it's very remote. Most of the roads are unpaved. There is only one street light on the main road. At night, it is pitch black. Our cabin is smack dab in the middle of the woods. I don't have a car with me on the island. I just bike to wherever I want or need to go. One night I worked the closing shift as a server at my aunt's restaurant. I finished closing up the restaurant and said goodbye to my aunt's partner, who was still in the kitchen. I left through the side door of the kitchen and started biking down the main road. On my route to and from work, I pass a bar where the locals like to hang out. Some tourists go there too, of course, as they go everywhere. But that bar is like Cheers to the islanders. Keep in mind that this is the only paved road on the entire island and the only road with streetlights. It was dark out. I only had my little bike headlight to guide me once I got off the main road. Anyway, I'm riding past the local hangout bar like I always do when some guy outside the bar says hi to me. This isn't uncommon It's a small island and people say hi to everyone around here. I smile and say hi back without really looking at him. I'm still in a polite server mode. I'm a little further down the road when this truck comes up behind me on the road. I'm riding on the right shoulder of the road, and instead of going around me, the truck stays behind me. But we were coming up to an intersection, so I figured that was why. We get to the intersection. I turn left, leading me onto an unpaved gravel road in the pitch black. The truck turns behind me and continues following me. I figure, okay, there's some houses on this road. Maybe this is where he stays. We all pass the houses on that road, with him still hot on my tail. Now we're in the deep woods. As we continue into the deep roads, he starts following closer and closer behind me until I can feel the heat of his truck on my back. I get to a curve in the road. After the curve leads to the road my cabin is on. I don't want to go down that road because my road is a dead end, with my cabin being the dead end, and I don't want this truck person to know where I am living. So instead of going around the curve, I lean to the side and let myself fall off my bike and into the ditch in the woods. Luckily the truck keeps on going. Luckily the truck keeps going around the curve. I sigh with relief and think I'm safe. I lay in the ditch for a few minutes trying to get my heart rate to go back to normal. Then I see headlights coming, the same headlights that had been following me. My bike is still laying on the side of the road, and the driver knows I'm still here. They stop next to my bike at the curb. A guy leans out the window and shouts,
"Next time you'll look at me when I say hi to you, you fucking bitch."
He then speeds off down the road, spraying gravel everywhere. I'm crying at this point, and just lay in the ditch quietly sobbing. Finally, after a good amount of time, without this crazy guy returning, I get back on my bike and head home. I am so thankful all he did was yell at me, and did not get out of his car and come after me. Random guy from the bar, let's not meet again.
Alright, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, share on Facebook, share on Twitter, share on Instagram. I don't give a shit where you share it, just share it. Thank you for watching.